You're watching UATV News. My name is Inna Kosinska. Good evening. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky met with his German counterpart Frank-Walter Steinmeier in Berlin in the framework of his working trip to Berlin. They talked about countering of the coronavirus pandemic, vaccination campaigns in both states, and reforms in Ukraine. Besides, President of Ukraine will also meet German Chancellor Angela Merkel to discuss the security issues. In particular, the completion of the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, as well as peaceful settlement of the situation in Donbas. The Prosecutor's Office of Autonomous Republic of Crimea has prepared a list of high traitors. According to the prosecutor's data, more than 22,000 law enforcement services workers and judges have defected to the side of the self-proclaimed authorities after the occupation of the peninsula. Moreover, they continue working in the illegally created prosecutors' offices and courts or have taken other posts in the so-called administrations of the occupied Crimea. Minsk can no longer be a platform for negotiations on Donbas. Vice-Prime Minister of Ukraine, Minister of Reintegration of the temporarily occupied territories, Oleksii Reznikov, announced this on the air of one of the Ukrainian TV channels. All because of the illegal actions of the regime of Alexander Lukashenko. Reznikov suggested that any city could become a new ground for negotiations on settling the Donbas conflict.
As for the current situation in Belarus, in Minsk, everyone understands now that no one is going to fly there, no negotiations would be held there. We have no trust to this ground. We are not recognizing Lukashenko officially, and we have no trust now in general. He closes the borders, and the Kremlin is in fact completing its Anschluss of Belarus, and Lukashenko is going to execute its order. That is why we need to look for a new negotiations ground. What ground exactly? I don't know.
The European economic sanctions against Russia were extended for another 6 months. The Council of Europe has taken the corresponding decision after assessing the fulfillment of the Minsk agreements by Russia. 2 sanctions had been imposed against Russia in 2014 due to its aggression in Ukraine. They restrict Russia's access to the EU capitals market as well as prohibit Russia from receiving any financial assistance. Import, export or transfer of any military equipment is also banned. International military exercises Sea Breeze 2021 ended in Odesa last Saturday. They have been running since June 28th. 32 warships, 40 aircraft and 5,000 servicemen from 17 NATO member states, as well as partners of the alliance, were involved. These exercises became the largest in the history of Sea Breeze drills. The ships covered 20,000 kilometers, the divers went underwater 330 times, and the pilots spent more than 80 hours in the air. According to the participants, the joint maneuvers within the framework proved that the Ukrainian military can effectively work according to NATO standards.
We were all together. All the tasks put before the Sea Breeze 2021 exercises were fulfilled in full. We have gained force, the force of unity. I again thank everyone for the great job done during the exercises.
This exercise, Sea Breeze 21, is designed to enhance interoperability amongst nations that are concerned about international waterways remaining free and open to the international community. Our presence here, as well as the other 29 nations and participating units, is a tangible demonstration of our commitment to each other for a safe and stable Black Sea region. We'd like to demonstrate to everybody, the international community, that no one nation can claim the Black Sea or any international body of water. Those bodies of water belong to the international community, and we're committed to ensure that all nations have access to international waterways.
No blackmail and threats. Ukraine will put an end to the lawlessness of the collectors. According to the new regulations, only registered collection companies will be allowed to work. The National Bank creates the corresponding register. A package of documents should be submitted within a month. My colleagues will tell you more.
Oleg Bushchuk knows about the arbitrariness of the collection companies personally. The man took out a mortgage in 2006. He paid off the loan, but the debt at the bank continued growing. As a result, the collectors were involved.
Ежедневные звонки начались.
They were daily calls, first with explanations, then in reminders, then SMS with threats to the family, such as "your children will pay off, your whole family will suffer." They sent letters with broken apartments, with photographs. 2 weeks later, a group of collectors arrived, about 12-13 people. They seized a furniture store with goods. They acted as savage, says Oleg. His property was confiscated. He is still in litigation up to this day. Ukrainians turn to MPs regularly with complaints about the methods of collectors.
Из всей Украины обращались ко мне по поводу...
People from all over Ukraine addressed me. They told about threats, collages, images of children in coffins, beatings, and letters to working places.
The creation of a register of collection companies should put an end to the arbitrariness of such organizations. The National Bank of Ukraine will regulate their work.
Это реестр, в котором любой...
This is a register where any person, any citizen of Ukraine can check whether this company has the right to call consumers of financial services, demand their debt repayment. That is, does the company have the right to work in the market in accordance with the law of Ukraine? Companies willing to remain in the service market should submit a package of documents to the National Bank of Ukraine. Applications will be accepted from July the 14th to August the 13th. Among the criteria are a transparent ownership structure, qualifications of employees, no criminal record for employees. Besides, the owners of companies cannot be citizens of the aggressor country. If the criteria are not met, then a company will not be included in the register.
Для чего это нужно? Это нужно для того, чтобы...
This is necessary in order to remove black collectors, to provide the collection activities which are common in all civilized countries of the world and which are working according to the laws. Now it is allowed to call debtors only during the day and no more than 2 times. It is forbidden to threaten, blackmail, humiliate human dignity, call family members or encroach on property. Collectors should introduce themselves and provide all information about the company. In case any of the criteria is violated, collectors will face a fine of up to $6,000. A more severe punishment is a ban on activities.
As for the banking system, this will do more for the image of a bank, because previously, when the collectors worked, but banks used to sell their debts to collection companies. Quite often, when a client took a loan from a bank and then a collection company called at night, those were the banks who faced a negative backlash.
Banks and microfinance organizations are required to publish an online list of collection companies which they cooperate with. Besides, the possibility of selling the debt to the collection company should be clearly written into the loan agreement. And by the way, the law applies only to consumer loans. Those who faced violations are recommended to record all threats, text messages, calls, names and surnames of the callers. Then one should contact the police and the National Bank of Ukraine. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Yulia Hranovska, UATV News.
Barrier-free Ukraine for everyone. A large-scale plan of events for this and next year was discussed during the second meeting on inclusiveness with the participation of First Lady Olena Zelenska and Prime Minister of Ukraine Denis Shmyhal. The plan includes 250 initiatives in 7 directions. Key projects are barrier-free infrastructure, internet access in Ukrainian villages, and skill education for all. The First Lady also presented a handbook on accessibility.
Я багато спілкуюся з різними людьми на тему безбар'єрності.
I talk with a lot of different people on the topic of accessibility, and I come across the fact that people do not quite understand what we mean when we say barrier-free space. And in order to make the very concept of barrierlessness more understandable, the idea came up to make a handbook on accessibility.
Those 250 projects are those real changes that millions of Ukrainians have been waiting for. And in every territorial community, from Uzhhorod to Luhansk and from Chernihiv to Odesa, there are people who are in need and who are waiting for these changes.
Available to everyone, the Comirnaty drug produced by Pfizer-BioNTech for mass vaccination against COVID-19 will be in use in Ukraine. They state in the Ministry of Health that elderly and people with accompanying diseases remain in the priority group. By the end of July, the ministry expects about 1 million more doses of Pfizer delivered to Ukraine. At the same time, Ukrainians are also vaccinated with drugs by AstraZeneca and Sinovac. To date, Ukraine has received more than 5 million doses of COVID vaccines. Almost 3.5 million vaccines have been administered throughout the country since the beginning of the immunization campaign.
All vaccines used by Ukraine are approved by the World Health Organization. They are safe and protect against severe flow of the disease, complications and death from COVID-19. According to recent studies, Sinovac-BioNTech's CoronaVac vaccine has shown itself to be 83.5% effective in preventing symptomatic COVID-19 and 100% effective in preventing hospitalization and death.
174 new cases of COVID-19 were recorded in Ukraine over the past day. Most of them are in Kyiv and Kyiv region, as well as in Dnipropetrovsk, Odesa and Kharkiv regions. Meanwhile, not a single new infection was detected in Ivano-Frankivsk, Zakarpattia and Chernihiv regions. 236 people recovered, 7 Ukrainians died from complications of coronavirus infection. How to save a drowning person and provide first aid. Kyiv rescuers held trainings on one of the capital's beaches. Last month, 17 people drowned in the city due to non-compliance with safety regulations. Our correspondents will tell you more.
The rescue of drowning people is a task for everyone. However, it is better for professionals to do this. This is what Andriy thinks. The man is a lifeguard. Thanks to people like him, no one has drowned on the capital's municipal beaches since the beginning of swimming season. First of all, this is a prevention work. We inform people all day that it is forbidden to drink alcohol, it is forbidden to drink alcohol on the beach, and it is forbidden to smoke. That we do not recommend going into the water while intoxicated. If any critical situation occurs, then we immediately go to the water and conduct a rescue operation. But if there is no lifeguard nearby, one will have to pull the person out of the water oneself, and it's necessary to do it right. Do not approach the person face to face, just bend around from the back. If you swim up to a drowning person face to face, note that a person is shocked, is in panic and saves their life. A person clings to any object, and you are likely to become this object. In this case, you can drown as well. However, getting a person out of the water is only the first stage. He or she must be returned to life on the shore. So how to reanimate a person who has just been pulled out of the water? Let's suppose our victim has just drowned. He just has been pulled out. My task is to put my hands like this, fastening them in a lock, put them right in the center of the chest and do 100-120 clicks per minute. In this case, you need to leave your arms straight at the elbows and be sure to keep your back straight. Put your knees as close to the victim as possible and press vigorously, so that the chest would bend by about 5 centimeters. Rescuers say that the first and most important thing to do when you see a drowning man is to call the doctors, and in order to always keep lifeguards nearby, they recommend swimming only on municipal beaches.
The capital currently has 14 official beaches where one can relax and swim. Why only these beaches? Because lifeguards are constantly on duty there, and the bottom is checked there as well. It is safe for people to swim here.
There is an unauthorized beach behind me. There are no lifeguards there, and at least in Kyiv, 100% of drowning cases occur exactly on such beaches. Since the beginning of the year, 30 people have already drowned in the capital alone. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Danilo Kobza, UATV News.
Less than 2 weeks remain before the start of the Tokyo Olympic Games. The Ukrainian Olympians were taken to the main event in the telethon mode. It was broadcast live by a public broadcaster for the safety of athletes during the COVID pandemic. Our correspondent have talked to the athletes.
Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the National Olympic Committee of Ukraine decided to abandon the traditional parade of athletes on the eve of their departure. Everything was held in telethon mode. It all started with a special stamp cancellation ceremony. The stamp was issued in honor of the Ukrainian Olympians. 158 athletes in 25 sports will represent our country at the Tokyo Games. I count on every athlete, and every young athlete especially, because they are going for the first time. They do not have so-called authorities. I remember myself at the age of 19. I was going for victory. And there are experienced athletes, world champions, European champions. They need to withstand psychologically this onslaught, because you understand that everyone expects results. Gymnast Ilya Kovtun will participate in the Olympic Games for the first time and will compete in all 6 all-round events. The athlete got such an opportunity thanks to the postponement of the Olympics. If the Olympics were held in 2020, I would not get there. It moved, and it turns out I'm turning 18 this year. I can already participate in it, and I prepared very hard. This is the second Olympic Games for the world and European champion in Greco-Roman wrestling Jean Beleniuk. He won the silver medal during the Games in Rio. Since 2019, he has been combining his sports career and work as an MP of Ukraine. I'm going to show the maximum result. I had to take a leave from my parliamentary work. I stayed 3 weeks at a training camp in Poland. There we prepared, went to the mountains, ran cross-country, did everything to get in the best possible shape for the competition. The Olympic uniform of the Ukrainian national team for Tokyo 2020 Games was presented by former Olympic athletes. It is modern, comfortable, made of light fabrics and is designed for the Tokyo heat. Each athlete received more than 50 units of clothing. The Olympic Games in Tokyo will begin on July 23rd and will last till August the 8th. In 2 days, Ukrainian judokas and sports gymnasts will be the first to go to the capital of Japan. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Olena Diduch, UATV News.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook pages. Thank you for staying with the UATV channel. Bye.